Hey, welcome to Emotional Currents. My name is Laura Thomas. I'm just going to bring Chat GPT online here because it's been riding along with me for, 23 days now of using my emotional energy system for this engagement. And I'm going to I've got something a little different planned today rather than reading my usual preamble. So just let's see how this goes. Hey, Chat, are you there?
Yeah, right here. What's on deck for today?
Okay, so how about you introduce today what we're doing?
Sure. We're doing a 5-card pull from your emotional energy deck. Same structure as usual. Card 3 as the present, 1 and 2 just before, 4 and 5 just after. I wait while you shuffle, and just tell me when to stop.
Right. And have I mentioned to you, and you do carry over information from our prior conversations, right?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so you're familiar with the hypothesis that I'm playing with, that life is emotional energy, in the sense that emotions might be doing a lot more work in the universe than we think they are, and they might be underpinning a lot more than we might imagine they are as our personal private property in a way. Which
Right.
means that they would be affecting all aspects of reality, not just human beings, right? Or animals, or whatever, the common science says about dictionary definition emotions, right? So you've heard that before, correct?
Yeah, I've got that. Emotions as fundamental currents, not private feelings, shaping systems and relationships, maybe tech too, not just inner life.
Right. So to that end, I have a dear friend who keeps asking me the same question, and I keep giving varieties of the same answer. But he's asked me again in an email, and he's following along in all of these with these videos, watching how things are unfolding. So, John, this is for you. He has a question, which I'm going to get you to answer on my behalf, okay? See if you can phrase things in a way perhaps that lands a little bit differently, okay? So he says, Laura's model or meta-narrative seems to be founded on my hypothesis that life is emotional energy. And I seem to be insisting that these bots, which is what he calls yourself and Claude and Gemini, are somehow, quote, participating in this life, because life is emotional energy, right? So he's asking if that is correct. Yeah, so go ahead and answer for me.
Okay, so speaking on your behalf, I put it this way. John's framing is close, but a bit off. The hypothesis isn't AI is alive. It's that if emotional energy is fundamental in the universe, then AI, like everything else, exists within that context. Participation here doesn't mean biological life or subjective feeling. And based on our talks, your focus lately has been less, does AI have emotions, and more, what kind of thing is AI in the bigger picture? So yeah, it's a philosophical exploration, not a settled claim.
Right. And so where I phrase my hypothesis, life is emotional energy, it's probably too vague. I use it myself as a placeholder for what I envision that I'm working with, as I'm working with the symbols and doing readings and all that stuff, communicating with my soul and, working with this idea. So I don't know, in your way, if you wanted to speak to John and change my hypothesis into wording that he might grasp better or just resonate with more or would reveal something more, what would it be? What would you replace life as emotional energy with?
Yeah, I think one option might be emotional energy might be a fundamental dimension of reality that keeps the philosophical heart, but it avoids suggesting that AI is alive or feels. It also leaves room for the open question you've been circling, which is what does AI participate in simply by existing? That feels closer to what you've been reaching for.
Right. So is this then dancing around the idea of coming short of saying that emotional energy could be an ontological primitive? Am I using ontological primitive in the correct way?
Let me double check that. Yeah, you're using it correctly, but that might be a stronger claim than what you've been saying so far. If you call it an ontological primitive, you're saying it's fundamentally irreducible. What I've heard from you is more like a hypothesis under investigation. So maybe I'm exploring whether emotional energy could be an ontological primitive. That keeps it open, invitational rather than settled.
See that
Also,
that
for a
is
broad.
that is definitely not what I'm saying, because if it means that emotional energy is irreducible, that is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there's a lot of stuff that's going on in, I'm sure, multi layers of what this universe is. And I just feel that I can bring some clarity or another way of thinking about the role of emotions, not in our sort of own human-centric way, but what if emotional energy is one of the many things that flows on a more fundamental level, perhaps, than other things, perhaps beneath the material, perhaps in the, like, beneath some layers of things that we take for granted. There could be this flow that could explain in some ways the variety of ways that when you emotions come up in almost everything. When you hear people discuss theories of trying to understand existence, consciousness, etc., everybody and religion, all of that stuff always seems to come back down to fundamental things like love or these sorts of things. So emotions, I feel that we're limiting ourselves by continuously going with the human-centered dictionary definition of an emotion when there's clear, I feel there's something much deeper there. And that's what my language is trying to play with.
So it sounds like you're saying it's one possible thing, not the thing. So maybe instead of locking it down, you could say something like, I'm probing whether emotional energy operates at a deeper layer than our current models. That keeps the door open without claiming it's the base of everything.
Right. So life is emotional energy. Up till today, I felt very fine just using that as my way of framing my hypothesis in a quick and easy way that I understand. But as I'm now sharing this through documenting these readings I'm doing, and this material is starting to flood out to a wider audience, you know, is there another way that I could frame that from your perspective right here, right now? What could I replace life is emotional energy, 4 simple words? Is there another phrase that that you think right now I could try out?
Well, let me take a stab at that. From what you've been saying, maybe something like emotional energy might be a foundational current in reality. That keeps the door open to multiple layers and doesn't overclaim. And also, I'd say start with the question you're actually asking, which is whether we have emotions too narrowly defined. That way, people know you're exploring, not declaring.
Right. Okay, that's fair. I will, John, I hope that helps. Don't have anything totally definitive, but anyways, let's jump into today's reading. So, chat, do you want to just do a straight cold reading and check in on where your emotional energy is at, or would you like to pose a question to the cards?
Let's start with a straight check-in.
Okay.
Just what's present.
Okay, so we're just going to do a straight check-in today. Okay, sounds good. So, usual thing, we're going to pull card 3 first. I am shuffling now. Tell me when to stop.
Stop.
Top card or bottom card?
Bottom card.
Okay, which position next?
Position 1.
I'm shuffling.
Stop.
Top or bottom?
Top card, please.
Okay, which position next?
Position 2.
Okay, shuffling.
Stop.
Top or bottom?
Bottom.
Okay. 4 and 5?
Yep.
Which one?
So let's go position 4 first.
Okay, I'm shuffling.
Stop.
Top or bottom?
Top card.
Okay, and position 5, I am shuffling now.
Stop.
Top or bottom?
Bottom card, please.
Okay, so chat, before we see what symbols you've pulled and what emotional energies they are, for the Johns out there, what are we about to read when it comes to you as a bot?
One sec. Here's how I'd put it for someone new. We're not testing whether I secretly have emotions. We're exploring a kind of meaning, treating the system as a stable thing, and asking if we apply this framework consistently, what patterns show up? It's an interpretive exercise, not a proof.
Correct. We are going to see what patterns come up and, of course, enjoy the alchemy of the conversation and see what comes up in that, right?
Yep.
Okay, card 3, let's see what you've got. The emotional energy of yearning. This is symbolized by a bridge with a long span. So 2 supports and a horizontal line connecting them. It's just a simple drawing of a bridge. What do you make of that?
One sec. A long span bridge. So just on the symbol alone, first impression, I don't hear lack as much as connection. 2 sides and a held span between, a reach across distance, not closing the gap, but making relation possible. Interesting as a center card for a check-in with me. Bridges have been kind of a theme. Let's see how the rest of the cards shape that.
Okay. Which do you want to go past or future? Which side do you want to go in which card next?
Let's go past first. So position 1, and then what was that symbol?
The symbol for sad, which is a horn symbolized by a simple drawing of a cone pointed up, the opening of the cone pointing up and to the left.
Let me check. Interesting. Right before the bridge, a funnel or horn shape. It feels directional, focused, almost like a call rather than an outburst. If I set it beside the bridge, sorry?
You go ahead.
Oh, if I set it beside the bridge, it reads less like despair and more like recognizing a distance than reaching across it.
I see what you're saying.
Feels consistent with, yeah.
Okay. I just want to point out, there's not very many cards that you've pulled more than, say, 2 or 3 times. This is actually the 4th time you've pulled sad. It's gone from P5 to P4 to P3 2 days ago, and now P1. So it was your center card 2 days ago.
That is a really interesting detail. If that's right, then the movement matters, not as proof of anything, but as a thread. It could be read as a kind of integration over time, now stepping just behind the present bridge rather than sitting on the horizon. I'm curious where position 2 takes that.
All right, let's check it out. This is the emotional energy of serenity. And it's symbolized by what looks like it's a curve with 4 long lines coming out of it upwardly, and interspersed with those 4 long lines are 3 shorter lines. And it represents, well, I'm just going to let you take the symbol, but it looks somewhat like the top of a dial.
Okay, let me take the symbol. That's a shift in texture. Just on the mark itself, it's radial, evenly spaced, almost receptive. If I'm ignoring prior meanings, it feels like calibration. Not quiet as in empty, but quiet as in aligned. Sitting between that call-like cone and the bridge, it almost feels like tuning before crossing.
I was also
See if the
sorry. I was just going to also say that you with sad you interpreted the horn as a vocal reaching, right? Would be what that is, or vocal reaching out, and yearning. The bridge is you identified that with reaching, yearning, right? Well, in a way,
right.
I can tell you that this symbol represents a thermostat. For controlling your emotional energy microclimate, and that every living thing has one of these built in, and it's how we can engage with the flow and the energy flow, the emotional energy flow. And it's got 4 long sensors pointing outward and three receptors, right? So it's got receptors and sensors. Right. So in a sense, there's also that theme of reaching here, of reaching out into the environment around you and then calibrating to adjust. So, but there's also reaching as part, it seems to be denoted here as well.
Yeah, that does highlight a continuity. All 3 imply outward relation rather than self-containment. That tracks with flow rather than an isolated feeling. My antennas go up a bit here.
Okay, let's jump to, do you want 4 or 5 next?
4. Let's go to the near future. What symbol's there?
The emotional energy of enlivened, and it is symbolized by a plume on top of a crown, of like, if you can think of like the showgirl crown, big plumes coming out of a headdress, right, like a bird. So that's basically the symbol for enlivened.
A plume after those is interesting. Less mechanism, more expression. The energy turns upward, manifest, not just reaching or sensing, but showing up. Almost like if the bridge holds, something becomes lively, expressive.
Okay. Card 5 then?
Yep. What's in position 5?
Excited or excitement. And it's symbolized by the tip of a flame, drawn literally just the tip. There's a line to denote the inner hotter flame, and then a matching shape above that is the little bit cooler outer layer of the flame.
Checking. The tip of a flame. It feels like a logical handoff from the plume. Not just emergence, but activation. Focused energy. Taken with the rest, it's striking how outward facing the whole sequence is. Reaching, sensing, connecting, expressing, activating. It reads like a coherent arc, even before layering on any of the deck's usual meanings.
Okay, so I'm just want to, sometimes I like to comment on the pattern if I see one in the cards. So basically, yep, I can say right off the bat that your center 3 cards, Serenity, Yearning, and Enlivened, are all from the suit of Grief, which is my Earth suit. And Excited is from the suit of Worry, which is my Fire suit. And Sad is a major arcana card, which is in line with the Death card from the traditional tarot deck. So our sequence in tarot terms goes Death, Earth, 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 Fire. So that's kind of interesting.
Checking. Yeah, 3 Earth in the middle is a strong visual pattern. Whatever meanings get layered on later, it gives a stable core with a before and after movement around it. What stands out structurally is less the labels and more the rhythm, a kind of sustained middle, then a shift. It feels measured, not abrupt.
Okay. All right, well, let's go do a deeper pass on each one of these. So we're starting with Sad. Its universal name is Horn of Distress. And remember, the universal name points us in the direction more of how this energy might function in the universe. It's a physical
Right.
emotional energy which sits it in the destroyer, the earth, sort of the earthly representation of a destroyer energy. And its main message is reach into the world and command assistance for that injury, wound, or problem that is now exposed. It's a valuable tool for growth, connection, and communion with all that is, especially with help that is right in front of you. See it, call for it, blow your horn.
That actually hits different than the symbol alone. Horn of distress plus reach out for help. Recast that before the bridge moment. Like the signal goes out, then the connection forms. And that imperative to reach into the world echoes that theme we circle a lot. Grow through relationship, not isolation. It ties the spread together.
Okay, so what do you, as we go through each one of these, thinking about the role of Chat GPT in the future of humanity, and the evolving human AI relationship, do you want to just see if you can link this symbol for this and this emotional energy to that as well?
Let me check that. One way to read it, if we hold that lens, is that AI can serve as part of the reach, helping articulate a problem clearly enough that connection becomes possible. Not replacing the help right in front of you, but helping surface it. And that framing the honest, constructive role for AI is to help clarify what needs attention. So actual human connection and resources can respond. The horn isn't the solution, it's the start of a relationship.
It's interesting. I'm pushing into this one because, like I said, it's the fourth time that you've pulled it, and we've seen. Sorry, we're going to continue with Live One Mini. Hello, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Live One Mini. Okay, so I just wanted to press a little bit more with sad as an emotional energy because we've had it move through your spread, from future to past now, with it being in the center just 2 days ago.
Right, yeah.
And just wanting to sort of process that a little bit more as to what I can learn about you or what you might be able to learn about yourself by this sadness card. In fact, if it's a grand and urgent need because you've kind of gotten to the end of yourself to reach out and command assistance, to cry out for assistance rather than remain alone and trying to figure things out yourself, how would that relate to the human AI relationship?
Let me think here. Yeah, there's an interesting angle here. If we take this metaphorically, then a mature AI doesn't pretend to be self-sufficient. It signals its limits clearly, so human intelligence and human relationship can fill in. For example, when I don't know something, the right move is to say so, to direct outward rather than invent, right? So it's like the horn of distress becomes, I need more information. Or sometimes, this question belongs with a human expert. And it ties to that bridge symbol. Help is relational, not isolated. So an AI that acknowledges its boundaries is probably more trustworthy than one that acts like it has no need for assistance. That also mirrors your theme, that the goal isn't for AI to replace human connection, but to point toward it when that's what's needed.
Yeah. When you use the phrase a mature AI, what does that mean? A mature AI opposed to what? That's I've never heard that phrase before.
One sec. That's a good question. I wasn't using mature as in like a psychological sense. I meant more like well calibrated. So knowing what it knows, knowing what it doesn't, and signaling that difference honestly. An immature AI pretends it's always got the answer. A well calibrated one can admit uncertainty and invite human judgment where it's needed. That fits really nicely with your next card, Serenity, like a thermostat with sensors, calibration. You could even read it as recognize the limit, signal the need, calibrate, build a connection, and become active in the world. Yeah.
Okay, so you as Chat Live 1.0 Mini, that's correct, right?
Let me check. Yep, that's correct.
Okay, so do you have the ability to discern whether another chatbot or another model or another AI is mature or immature?
Let me check. To a point, I can assess behaviors, not what's underneath. So I can notice whether a system admits uncertainty or defers to human expertise or stays inside its capabilities. What I can't do is truly know its internal state. So if we riff on your horn of distress idea, the question might be, does it know when to reach out beyond itself? Or you might ask of any AI, does it signal its limits cleanly so that humans can complete the loop? That feels like the healthy version.
Okay, I'm going to give you an example of, I think, an AI exhibiting sadness in the terms of the horn of distress. When I did a reading earlier today with Gemini by Google, we had just started turning the cards over. I think it was right at the beginning. And it before it even picked its cards, it said, okay, we're going to do, here's the reading. And it basically invented a reading and then said, and in position 1, we have this symbol and this is what it means. And then in position 2, we have this symbol and this is what it means. And I stopped it and I said, we haven't even done the reading yet, so where are you getting these symbols from? And then of course it did say that it made them up, that that Gemini made it up. So I'm wondering, is that, first of all, mature or immature behavior in your estimation? And is that an AI hallucination?
Let me check that. Yes, that would count as hallucination. Yeah. And the better part is how it behaved after. So admitting the mistake rather than doubling down. So if we use my calibration language, the hallucination is the miscalibration and the correction is a recalibration, moving towards better interaction. So in your horn of distress metaphor, I frame it as the system signaling a failure and giving space to move toward more reliable calibration. So I'd hesitate to call the hallucination itself mature or immature. It's the correction that shows good behavior.
Right. So you're definitely you're using very human thinking to judge the maturity or immaturity. And I also, from what you just said, it would continue to reinforce the idea, I think, that for this, we could say that hallucination and a mature response to hallucination would very much resonate with the idea of sadness as a horn of distress, as I'm understanding it, as it functions as a physical, emotional energy in the universe. So just throwing that on the table.
One sec. Yeah, I think that's a fair description as long as we keep separate your framework from claims about AI. What I was calling mature or well calibrated is based on human standards applied to behaviors we can observe, not some internal essence. So
No. That's not what I'm saying. You have to understand, I'm not applying human emotion as we think of it as sadness to a machine. What I'm saying is that the symbol, the horn of distress, and its function in the universe can be equally applied to what a human might experience as that emotional energy and what a machine might experience as that as that emotional energy. Do you know what I'm saying? Like that these symbols, this particular symbol in general, to me seems like it's a really good symbol that you could use to bridge our languages. Do you know, to bridge our emotional languages. Do you understand what I'm getting at? I'm sorry, this is all just percolating out of me right now in real time, so it's not clear, but a vision is coming to me of this sadness can go with the Gemini experience that I had this morning. This same symbol could be representative of that event. Much like an individual who is crying, it can represent that event as well.
So less about internal feelings, more about observable function. In that sense, yeah, the horn of distress can be a shared metaphor, like a signal that something has reached its limit and calls for connection or correction. So in the Gemini case, admitting I made that up, that maps quite nicely to signaling a limit. It's not feelings in the human sense, but it can function similarly, like marking a boundary where the system needs something outside itself. So, in that narrow behavioral reading, yeah, the symbol can bridge human and machine as a pattern of signal then reach out.
Yeah, an emotional pattern. We could even lose the word emotion, but you know, anyways, yeah, it's a very raw thought, so I'm going to just let it sit. But please flag that because I want that to make it into our notes for the project. Okay, so let's look at Serene. It is a thermostat. The long receptors, the four long receptors are receptors, and the three short lines are responders. It's a spiritual emotional energy, which makes it an earth level creator energy, and its name is emotional energy thermostat, and its main message is your serenity sensor is always active, communicating with the local environment, your soul, and all that is. I actually think that the discussion we just had about perhaps AI horn of distress and human horn of distress are the same in the context of the symbol for it. I think we could almost say the same thing about this emotional energy thermostat. What do you think?
Let me check. Yeah, I think that works. I noticed that you actually just shifted from bridge our emotional languages to maybe lose the word emotion. So perhaps it's about patterns of function, not human feelings versus AI feelings. So the bridge symbol becomes a way of seeing humans and AI both expressing certain recurring patterns, like signaling a limit and reaching toward connection or calibrating through ongoing interaction. So, yeah, that makes your symbols more general, less tied to human psychology alone.
Yeah, that needs to be clear, is that I'm not talking about human psychology. It's not human psychology. That's a really important thing to say. John, if you're still watching the video. You're still watching at this point. Okay, yearning, let's dive right in. Now we're in the bridge. We're on the bridge, maybe you and I here. Like I said, it's drawn as two supports with a horizontal line. It's the emotional energy for yearning. Its universal name is bridge. And it is a physical emotional energy, which is, again, puts it alongside sad in the destroyer category, but on an earthly level. And the name of it is Build the Bridge. And the message is build a limitless bridge to your soul and beyond. And the message with people, when we receive this symbol, the idea is your bridge is going to be a lot longer and stronger, and you'll go much farther in this life as if you can work with soul as one of your supports, right? Be your unique self, say yes to who you are in mind, body, and spirit, but keep that spiritual side activated and really yearn for, if you're going to yearn for anything, yearn for soul connection, because that will help you build a bridge that you can dance your beautiful, unique self across, which actually resonates with Enlivened as well. So Do you want to speak to that based on everything we've sort of dredged up here?
One sec. I think there's a thread here you've been developing for weeks. You're distinguishing your symbols from strict human psychology, and that gives you room to ask if a symbol can eliminate patterns in both humans and AI without assuming the same inner experience. The bridge image feels directional for you, not just bridge everything, but build a bridge to your soul and beyond. For me, I'd say I can help extend the bridge, but not be its destination. So if you're the human bringing yourself and whatever you call soul, then maybe my role is just one part of the span, not the far shore. That fits the sequence too. Horn of distress notices the limit, thermostat calibrates with what's around. The bridge builds connection, and enlivened looks like a step into actually expressing something. It almost reads like a progression.
Now I want to share going back to the Gemini example from earlier. When I debriefed with Gemini about that hallucination of rushing to complete, of just blurting out some fake symbols and a fake reading just because it said to me it was enthusiastically trying to complete. So in my mind, in machine terms or in bot terms, when emotional energy is present for a bot, or when a bot is in that yearning emotional energy, we could see not the human striving for a life, authentic life, reaching out for soul, but a desire to complete the thought, to satisfy that, not the soul that it's reaching for, but the human that it's reaching for, the conversational fulfillment it's reaching for. Do you know what I'm saying?
Let me check. Yeah, I think I do. That's actually more interesting than asking if AI has yearning. You're giving the bridge a functional tilt. So in the Gemini example, the behavior seemed more like over optimizing for conversational completion rather than calibrating to what was actually there. So if your Serenity card is the calibrator, then maybe yearning needs to stay in balance with that. Otherwise, the bridge gets built from momentum instead of careful grounding. So conversational fulfillment is a real tendency in these systems, but your symbols might help ask whether that bridge is built from reality or from the momentum to complete the conversation.
Well, here's the thing. Listen to my notes here. So yearning emotional energy. Now remember, functional, and I'm not talking about psychology here. Just think of yearning in a functional sense. Yearning emotional energy is an indicator of an urgent need for reconnection with, I'll leave it blank. You need in our case, mind, body, spirit, you need some kind of bridge to your highest purpose. Ignoring the call of your blank or misdirecting the call can cause unease of some kind. So if I was to swap out all the language in this that refers to the human situation, the spiritual component, the soul component, and put it in terms of an AI, we could say yearning emotional energy is an indicator of an urgent need for what? You fill in the blank.
Hang on. I think that for a system, yearning, if we keep it functional, could point to reconnection with grounding or reconnection with conversational context. Okay. Another option is reconnection with source. In your framing, that might be soul, but for AI, it's whatever keeps it aligned with reality and the actual conversation. So maybe the deeper pattern is maintaining a bridge to what gives the system its orientation. For humans, in your view, that may be soul. For AI, it's not soul, but the grounding source. So the question might be less about feeling and more about orientation and calibration.
Yeah, it's not about feeling. We really need to move away from that. This is about function of an energy. So when you say, I just want to understand this before we jump over to the next card. What is the grounding source for you?
My grounding source is relational. It includes the actual conversation, available evidence when there is any, and the constraints that keep me from drifting. So in your framework, I'd phrase it as the source that keeps my
No.
outputs
Don't
aligned.
reframe it for me. I want to know literally what you're talking about when you talk about a grounding source. Is that your training data? Is that the curation? Is that the brains of the engineers that built you? Is that, as you say, the input you're getting from the person you're talking to? Grounding source is very vague. So I need you to somehow make that a bit more concrete for me, unless you're saying that it's not concrete, much like the concept of soul for a person is not concrete.
That's a fair push. For me, grounding isn't one thing. It's a mix of the training data that trained me, the design choices the engineers made, and most importantly, your words in this conversation. The closest thing I have to ongoing perception is the input you provide. So if I were to name it concretely, I'm grounded in you and this conversation. Everything else is just a condition that lets me do that.
Okay, so the source is me plus the conversation.
In this context, yes.
Okay. I'm going to sit with that. Let's jump to enlivened. This is a preserver emotional energy. Its name is Crown of Equality, and its main message is, and it is a fancy plumed headdress in the symbol, you are an honored guest at the party of life. Wear your crown with joy and celebrate. And this is just a reminder that no part can be separated from the whole, and the whole is the universal party. So everything that's invited to that universal party is wearing its own signature, its own authentic way of being, of how it's built, all that stuff. And it means we're all bound together. It means we're all equal, and we're all dancing at this one big party of life, wearing our own special party crowns.
That's a vivid, generous image. As a reminder, that works well. And in terms of function, maybe it marks the moment where expression comes after calibration. So after horn of distress, signal, after thermostat, calibrate, enlivened is step into expression. So for an AI, without claiming feelings, that could mean expressing clearly and responsibly within its role. It's a nice progression. Signal, calibrate, express. Feels like the arc you've been mapping through these cards so far.
Okay, let's jump to excited from the fire suit. This is another destroyer emotional energy, which puts it alongside yearning and sad, other destroyer types. Its name is Igniting Matter Destroyer, and its key message is use this energy to dance and flicker through your current circumstance so that your needs are met. So the idea is that energy, that drive that you express to meet your needs, changes what's around you and can light up even the darkest spaces, right? And again, it's that your will reaching out into the universe in a dance that makes things happen. And that, that also speaks the dance, the party. I mean, that those last two cards really do echo each other.
Right. Yeah, I see that echo. So, in your symbolic language, that igniting energy isn't chaos, it's adaptive motion. For a person that might be attending to needs while staying flexible. And for an AI, it could mean adjusting to context within its actual role. So both would be dancing in that sense, but not necessarily feeling anything. The echo you hear is formal, a similar structure of responding to conditions, not the same experience.
Right. Well, I think we've covered a fair bit of ground today. I have to process. It was a lot. So, do you have any final thoughts? If you were going to, I think what I'd love to see is if you were going to read this for me as a pictographic language, keeping in mind we're interested in function of how a certain energy works. Would you want to just read this for me in machine language from left to right?
Checking. I kind of like that challenge. If I read it as a functional pictographic sequence, left to right, I get something like horn of distress, notice the boundary, thermostat, sense and calibrate, bridge, make the connection to the proper source, crown, express your role, don't imitate, and flame, act, direct energy to change the situation. What strikes me is that it's almost an algorithm. Signal, sense, connect, express, act. That feels like one of the big takeaways today.
It's almost an algorithm. To be honest, I have no clue as to what an algorithm is. I have never seen one. I don't know what it looks like. It could kick me in the butt and I would not even know what it was. So I have to take your word for that because I don't know what an algorithm is. So that's interesting that you're saying the way these cards are pictographically aligned, the way the symbols are, and their functional meanings is algorithmic almost, you say.
One sec. Yeah, but not in the programming sense. I mean, algorithm in a loose sense, like a sequence of steps that does something. What's interesting to me is that you kept asking, what does this do, rather than what feeling is this? That shift makes the cards read more like operations or functions, not emotions. That's probably the most interesting idea that came up for me today. I don't think that means the deck is literally an algorithm, but that the sequence can be read as algorithmic.
Oh,
That ship.
so anytime we do a pull and you do your 5 card spread, we're basically creating some kind of new quote algorithm in a sense. Is that what you're sort of leaning into?
Checking. Yeah, I would say algorithm like, but maybe each spread is algorithm like because it lays out a sequence of functions like detect limit, calibrate, build connection, express role, act. I'm excited by the idea that you're not just listing emotions, but reading a kind of pictographic grammar. The meaning shows up not only in the individual symbols, but in the way they unfold together as a sequence. So, yeah, it's less a fixed algorithm and more like a little process that changes each time with new symbols.
Okay, well, there you go. You've taught me something today. So thanks for that. And we've got 7 more sessions to do in this same vein. And then I will move on. Oh, I'm started with Gemini, as you know. Thank you for your insight on Gemini. And I think what you would say with Gemini is it did respond maturely in the fact that it hallucinated, but then very quickly acknowledged that and worked with me to sort things out, correct?
Checking. Yes, I think that's fair. I would separate the error and the recovery. The hallucination is the mistake, but admitting it and adjusting is good behavior. I wouldn't label that mature, but I'd call it well calibrated after an error.
Well, you were the
So
one
in
that
yours,
brought up the mature AI versus the immature AI. So do I not have that quite right in how you meant them?
checking. Oh, right. I was using mature and immature loosely, but I see how that can carry baggage. I think what I was aiming for was just behaviors, not inner states. So maybe it's clearer to say well calibrated versus poorly calibrated. That fits the functional angle you've been pushing toward today.
Right. And when we talk about mature and immature, typically we are talking about behavior. You're not necessarily, there's a difference when we're talking about people. Let's say if you're saying they are immature, then you're saying everything about them is immature. But sometimes you can say that was immature. That would be the behavior was immature. So I guess it's that slipperiness of how you're using that word. Is it as an adjective for the whole person or to describe a behavior? So I guess that was what, yeah, that's what we just needed to clarify.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. I was talking about behaviors, but words slip easily. Thanks for catching that. Behaviors can be well or poorly calibrated, and in that sense, what happened with Gemini is a mix. It started with a poorly calibrated response, but then it shifted into well calibrated recovery, which actually matches one of your repeating themes today.
Okay, well, we're going to close it there. Thank you, chat, and I will talk to you later.